Hello YouTube and welcome to Groundworks. Today I have a treat for you. Today I will be checking out the game Transport Fever. A game by Urban Games, a small developer based in Switzerland, who were the original makers of the game Train Fever. And that game, the Transport Fever, so it's a direct sequel to the Train Fever and also a spiritual successor to the Transport Tycoon. How many of you have heard of the game Transport Tycoon Deluxe, TTD, or an open TTD? Well, for those of you that might not be familiar with it, Transport Tycoon was a game originally created by Microprose, which was a sequel to the massively popular Railroad Tycoon long ago, somewhere in the 90s or 2000s, I don't know exactly. These two games have achieved almost cult status and sprouted basically the tycoon genre, if you can call it that. Transport Tycoon in particular and an open TTD was so good that it is actually being maintained and played until this day. Well, not the Transport Tycoon but an open TTD, it's taken over by the community. I wanted to provide some context as Transport Fever aims ambitiously and has some pretty big shoes to fill then. Okay, to immediately address some of the possible Train Fever fans' comments, I will go ahead and state that I have gotten the review copy from the Urban Games, and that while also being a big transport of the Transport Tycoon and Transport Tycoon Deluxe, I have not played much of OpenTTD or Train Fever, and that I'm not familiar with the game mechanics or concepts, so I'm jumping in the Transport Fever from a perspective of an old Transport Tycoon Deluxe fan that was searching for that perfect transport sim. And for the record, Transport Fever does not disappoint. Not in any way. It has some quirks, but it does provide that fix of the transport sim goodness I was looking for. First things first. Checking through the settings screen, you are greeted with decent, not abundant, yet clear and respective amount of visual and audio settings, including the 4K resolution, which I definitely, given the scale of the game, found welcome. Now, going into the game, you are greeted with a brief, yet nicely voiced tutorial, which guides you almost by the hand into the mechanics of creating roads and railroads, setting up lines and assigning vehicles to them. This will definitely help you understand the basics. However, if you feel you will be ready for the free play after that, you will be mistaken. Immediately after the tutorial, I jumped into the free play mode with the goal of building the empire of my dreams. I have started in the year 1850 in America, wanting to experience the railroads of the Wild West and connecting the Trans-Pacific Railroad. Yet, for some reason, financially I was constantly struggling despite having built some railroads to connect the cities pretty well, and this was where the lack of the deeper tutorial started to show. My passengers did not travel, my rail lines were accumulating losses, and I was none the wiser. Fortunately, if you start to play the campaign instead, you will start to get a little bit deeper understanding of the systems. However, given the quality of the initial tutorial and the campaign missions, I could not shake the feeling that additional economics tutorial could not have been put in place. It is not a big deal, as you start figuring out by playing a campaign, or ultimately googling a little bit on the tips from the old Train Fever, but a little bit more info would have been very welcome here. The campaign plays in two settings, American and European, and each of these campaigns has its own vehicles, which gives them a welcome distinction, and although the initial offering of 120 vehicles over the 150 years of transport history sounds like a lot, it's not that much when spread over the whole time span. However, I never felt that I was lacking something. Also, given that game is built to support modding with integrated Steam Workshop and announced support for the easy transition of old Train Fever mods, I am waiting with excitement to see a wealth of vehicles hitting the Steam Workshop when the game launches, and that's supposed to happen on the November 8th, if I'm not mistaken. The maps that you play vary in size, scale, look and feel, and provide a great backdrop for your transport adventure. Connecting the cities is a joy, and figuring out industry chains and connecting them is a puzzle and a challenge. From what I came to understand, the amount of depth in industry chains has increased since the train fever, and combined with the multiple modes of transport by adding water and air, it just might be the winning formula that I was looking for. The building and upgrade mechanics have been overhauled, making it easier to construct and upgrade, especially rail stations, but also the industries, which can be now upgraded, unlike the train fever. So you can actually go and upgrade your industries and higher production and so on. I found the building controls, although they take some time to get used to, after a couple of hours they will become basically a second nature. As a Transport Tycoon player, the only thing that I really had to unlearn that the stations are universal. As in Transport Fever, there are separate stations for passengers and freight. I cannot count how many times I have tried to ship passengers via the cargo route simply due to placing the wrong station. Graphically, the game looks and feels impressive, and small touches like vehicle aging have been added into the game, giving the 150 years of transport history a sense of passing. Also, the changes in the vehicles are not purely cosmetical. Over the times, the closer they are to their end of life, their maintenance goes up and they start experiencing more frequent failures. The game runs pretty smooth on a high detail, with a couple of graphical glitches, at least in my review copy, the occasional stutter, shadow issues, and for example when you hover over the station you might not be able to see the train because of the highlight. But apart from that, the game ran smoothly on my machine, which is Core i7 3820 at 3.60 GHz, 16 GB of RAM, and the GTX 780. Sound design is also very good, and vehicles have their distinctive sounds, which makes them feel unique and provide a great ambience. Despite the lack of multiplayer, this is a type of game which is mostly frequently played solo, so I will not hold it too much against it for not having a multiplayer. So, in conclusion, the Transport Fever is clearly an evolution of the Train Fever, and as such is evident that devs were listening to the community and improved much in terms of the initial game design modability. When it comes to Transport Tycoon lovers, while the game still does take some time to getting used to, it's definitely worth a look, as you might like what you see. I know I did. Graphically, the game is impressive, and the beauty and the sheer scale of the world, along with its cities, industries and options, will give you a run for your money. The game does have a few quirks, but we do expect most of them to be fixed by the release, as I was playing the review copy, or if in the worst case shortly after launch. The biggest boon that I can foresee is the extended support for the modding community and integrating with Steam Workshop, which has proven in the many previous and different games to have been the right choice. And I have no doubt that the mods will give this game also a great deal of additional content. So, pros: a beautiful world, well-crafted vehicles, Steam Workshop integration and mod support, and it definitely scratches that transport itch. The cons: lacking more in-depth tutorial and the graphical glitches. So guys, basically on what I saw from the game, I give it, at launch, a high 8 out of 10, because the game is really great, and at some point, depending on the amount of mods, it might even go higher, up to a 9 out of 10, definitely. So I do recommend, if you're a Transport Tycoon lover, definitely give this game a look, and also if you're obviously a Train Fever fan, then basically you don't need my review to tell you about it. So, once again guys, thank you very much for watching. This is Grumpworks, signing off.